Joining us tonight, Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, great to have you with us. You stand in counterpoint, obviously, to Adam Schiff. I'm sorry for having you in the proximity of our production tonight. It's great to see you. Your thoughts about Adam Schiff and what in the world does he think he's doing?
Well, Adam Schiff should not be chair of the Intelligence Committee. We had asked the Ethics Committee to investigate his improper disclosure of classified information. And then he had these illicit contacts with Glenn Simpson and other anti-Trump witnesses. So 2 pending ethics complaints. Someone with that level of ethical malpractice should not be trusted with classified information. And him threatening to jail his political opponents, because this is a political process, and he's talking about finding and jailing his political opponents, show you where his head is at. And Schiff is one of the top offenders in terms of the illicit targeting of President Trump. He obviously has been working with Fusion GPS. He's been on the scam, and I don't say this lightly, Lou, because he's one of these politicians who have lied repeatedly about Russia and Donald Trump. And you can't say that about a lot of politicians, believe it or not, because they're usually pretty careful about lying. But he has been a liar in chief when it came to targeting President Trump and Russia, and he needs to be held accountable for it.
He's abhorrent, and it rises to the same level of abhorrence is Nancy Pelosi, leaving him in that position, along with a number of other names that we'll get to later in this broadcast. But I want to turn to what Judicial Watch is doing right now, uncovering documents that demonstrate clearly that the White House knew about the Clinton email scandal and knew about it quite early as 2012. I mean, that's remarkable.
Yeah, that's 2 years before Judicial Watch's FOIA lawsuits forced them to fess up. And, another group had asked for the Clinton emails, and they were lied to by the State Department and saying there was nothing there. And it turns out that whole process in responding to that FOIA request with a lie involved the Obama White House counsel's office. And they were using their guidance, evidently, to respond. So, once again, you've got the Obama White House tied to the lies told the American people about Hillary Clinton's emails. And that's why you can bet that she was never prosecuted, because to prosecute Hillary Clinton meant bringing in the Obama White House into the criminal conspiracy.
Right. And right now we're looking at the real prospect of actually getting to the truth of the origins of the witch hunt, this this conspiracy to overthrow the President of the United States, which began while he was a candidate. Your thoughts on how now proximate that reality is, that we'll actually see a hard-nosed investigation producing real results with grand juries and real accountability?
Well, to have grand juries, that would be a pleasant surprise. And Attorney General Barr, I know, is committed to doing an investigation. And an investigation doesn't mean an administrative inquiry. It means impaneling grand juries. But if I were the president, I would not rely on the Justice Department to get it done, even if Attorney General Barr wants to do the right thing. And certainly the FBI is being mismanaged by Director Wray in terms of his outrageous defense of the indefensible in terms of the spying on President Trump and other misconduct. The president should start releasing all of these key documents that everyone's been talking about. He can do it through executive power. He can appoint a transparency czar and cut through it all to get all these documents released. He can't rely on the agencies to do the right thing here. And if they do the right thing, that'd be great, but it's good to have other information out there.
Tom Fitton, as always, great to have you with us. Thanks. See you soon.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Tom
you,
Fitton, Judicial Watch.